And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Allen Americans podcast. Tommy Daniels here on this beautiful day. And joining me, longtime friend, worked with him in the radio business for several years before I departed for the hockey world. He's one of the legendary voices in sports talk radio in Dallas, Fort Worth. They call him the Sturminator, the one and only, the great Bob Sturm. And I don't have the applause in, so I'll just do it myself. How are you?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Well, good to see you. Obviously in these crazy times, I guess as a talk show host, how are you handling the day-to-day operations? Because it's not business as usual.
No, it's one day at a time. It's try to entertain people, try to help people get their minds onto other things, and just off the monotony of what we're all dealing with right now, and the fact that we're all without sports. But look, it's a small role we play, but hopefully one that is important to some, and heck, it's important to me to kind of have this to do every day. So it's not ideal. It's not ideal for any of us, is it? But in the meantime, it's kind of fun to be able to goof around for a couple hours every day and call it assistance to those who really look forward to that sort of thing.
This is a tough question, Bob, and I know you can't answer this. I can't answer this, and nobody can right now. But do you think at some point before the calendar year turns to 2021, we'll see sports as we once knew it?
I'm going to say yes. Now, I have nothing to base that on. I am an optimist only because it helps me get through the days and weeks and months. And so I'm going to keep an optimistic view for as long as I possibly can and say, yeah, I think things will turn. And I think maybe certainly not with the rapidity or the just the general speed that this whole thing came to us. I don't expect it to leave with the same speed and unexpectedness, but maybe something, that gets us, midsummer, we can start to feel like we have some progress in the right direction. And then, you know me, Tommy, I'm always going to keep my greatest optimism for football starting on time. Now that might be crazy, and it might not be all the way down to the grassroots levels that we all love in this area, but I'd like to think we'll have something resembling normalcy here in the next couple months. But I don't have any idea. I'm just gonna always look on the bright side and try to keep that glass as half full as possible.
Keep hearing that Major League Baseball would like to come back in some capacity this year. We've heard all kinds of crazy scenarios, maybe going back to your spring training home and starting there. And I think, how in the world are you going to play, baseball and maybe double headers in July and August in Arizona when the temperature is, 118 degrees? But hey, we all want sports back. Obviously this year, an exciting year in Dallas, Fort Worth with the opening of the new park eventually. What do you think about baseball? And I'm a baseball guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's needed. I don't want to get carried away with terms like that, though, when we're talking about very serious matters. But I just think it's the type of thing going all the way back to World War II, maybe World War I, although I don't know that as well. But I do know that when there were massive, important issues going on in this world of ours, there was room for sport, and at the time baseball, and I think that does bind us in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I have a hard time imagining stadiums being full again, alive, which is kind of that juice that we all really enjoy and feed off of just when we look at how our sports are consumed. So if it starts in empty stadiums, and if it starts like like in a TV studio almost, where it's just a few cameras and the performers, I mean, that's probably better than nothing. In fact, I'm going to say it's definitely better than nothing, but it's not what we will really want. But I think we probably have to use this as incremental steps back to normalcy, and each step might take a month, might take a couple months. I don't have any idea, but I'm open to all alternatives. I'll put it that way. But again, I'm just a talking head out here, so I will obviously abide by those smarter than me. But then we'll have to have something to say about it.
This is Bob Sturm of Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. Long time. You started in 99, right?
98 at night, 99 in middays.
Wow, that's a long time. I know you're a big part of that 99 Stanley Cup. I was there too. It was a fun series.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. So as I go to the grocery store daily, I find people avoiding each other and don't even want to walk down the same aisle when you're down that aisle. Not me in particular, but just people in general. So I have a hard time believing that people are going to want to pack, get into a stadium with 80,000 people when people don't even want to walk down the same aisle with you in the grocery store. So when, if ever, will we return to that kind of normalcy where people will actually sit right next to somebody in the stadium again? Because right now, people are scared to death.
Yeah. I mean, it's the ultimate question, isn't it? And I suppose it starts outside of sports when you talk about subways and you talk about trains and buses and just really not only here in the States but all over the world. Certainly in Europe, mass transit's really what life is built upon. So that's kind of a miniature version of the stadiums that are supposed. There's certainly more of an elective than your commute to work. But I don't know. I don't know. I assume you're talking about figuring out medical ways, breakthroughs to address the virus, and then once you can do that, people can be more at ease. Like with any sickness in the history of this planet, is eventually working your way around to a cure, to ways to address it in a sensible manner. So when that happens, then the stadiums are back, I'm sure, because we've seen smaller versions of this through society, maybe not during times of huge levels of professional sports, but obviously in times of huge populations and huge cities and things like that. So, again, I think it will be learn to crawl, then learn to maybe stand, and then we'll learn to walk, and then learn to run. So the full football stadiums of the spring, or hockey, or fall, or the hockey arenas of the spring, we're obviously going to have to take this slowly and gradually to make sure we don't, jeopardize any innocent, healthy people. I guess innocence doesn't have much to do with it. That's a bad term, but just healthy people that are just going about their lives. Let's obviously put that as a massive priority.
We saw how life changed after 9/11.
Yeah.
Now we're a completely different situation here. But will we ever see sports go back to normal again?
I think so. I mean, I'd like to think so. I don't know any other way, Tommy. You know that. I mean, this is. I'm 47, and I've spent roughly 47 years being obsessed with sports because I love every bit about it. People ask me, well, what's your favorite sport, Bob? And I basically look at the calendar, and the year helps me determine that. I mean, I just love human competition, and I love feeding off that as a member of the crowd or the media. So I don't know any other way. So if for some reason this makes us cancel sports, I'm going to have to figure out a whole new life, and I'd rather not do that. So let's figure this out if we can and get back. And if it takes 6 months to get there, hopefully we all got nothing but time.
Well, you and I have talked a lot of hockey over the years.
Yes, sir.
And now the NHL, obviously they want to come back.
Right.
I would love to see him come back too in some way this year before we end the year. But if you are putting together a plan to somehow get the NHL playoffs in before the end of the year, how do you think they're going to do it?
Wow. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a centralized place. You're talking about probably having to keep all the teams in one location with empty arenas, and it's just going to be different. So I don't know. I do think this. If there's anything out of this that I would just throw against the wall, I would say the one thing that I've always wondered about hockey and basketball is, should they basically do more of a December or January to August or September type calendar more than they do right now. And I assume when all these sports started, when the inception happened, in the case of hockey, they were playing outside. So there's a real common sense reason on why you had to play the months you played when the National Hockey League or even professional hockey was born. I do think that there's some sensible ways to attack the sports calendar, given the fact that all these sports need their own air to breathe and their own real estate and their own competitive advantages. And I just think in the case of hockey, for instance, while it would be weird to play the heart of your schedule, when the weather starts moving, the fact of the matter is, Tommy, with very few exceptions, we don't play outside anymore. Yeah. We don't necessarily require, Mother Nature to help us make ice. And so while, it might be weird, I also think it probably makes more sense than competing with, high school and college and pro football in October, November, December, especially down in the Sun Belt. So, maybe when it returns, it kind of just assumes that type of calendar, but I realize that's outside the box. But, when it gets back, it's going to be the weirdest playoff ever. It will have that in common with probably every sport under the sun, because baseball, basketball, heck, the Masters in November. I mean, you're going to have so many weird anomalies in 2020 that we'll all just shrug and say, well, at least we had a champion. It's better than no champion at all. But I suppose rival fan bases will say that they got it in a weird year, but whatever, right? Somebody will skate the cup in an empty arena in North Dakota, and it's all going to be super odd to us, but we're all going to be equally thankful we're watching hockey on some level.
Some might want to know, what does Sports Sturm do in your off time when you're not preparing a show or you're not on the air? When you're at home with the family at night, what are you doing to occupy your time?
Oh, first of all, until the NFL draft gets done, I don't know just a ton of free time, but I'm also not such an ogre that I don't spend any time with my family. So when the show gets done, we all go grab a meal. And recently we've been binge watching Lost, because the kids never saw that. And we'll watch that. We'll pop in some movies. We watched Groundhog Day the other night on Saturday. And so, honestly, it's kind of cool because time is impossible to gather. And especially when you have 3 teenagers like my wife and I do.
Oh, man.
They're all in different directions, and yeah, time is flying. So maybe, just maybe, we'll all look back at this spring as these bonding moments with family. And of course, at times tempers, or that's probably a weird term, but everybody kind of loses patience because of close quarters and everyone kind of getting on each other's nerves. But you also have these incredible times where we're put together a giant puzzle and laugh, and we set up a fake little miniature golf course in the backyard, or just whatever we're doing to pass the time. So it's happening. Whether everybody likes it or not, we're all getting to bond with our families, and at our house, it's been lots of laughs and very few dust-ups that we had to break up with linesmen or anything like that.
Well, I've had Dan, your longtime buddy, up to an Allen Americans game. As a matter of fact, a couple times. Dan is most famous for coming up for a championship and leaving before overtime. So he missed the game winner at 3 minutes into overtime, which I still give him a hard time about. But
yeah, you should.
We got to, you know what? We've talked about this. We have to get, you up there in particular. You're the big guy in Dallas Fort Worth up to a game and drop a puck and maybe go on the bench for a period or two. But
there's no doubt. I'm a great admirer of what you guys have done. Clearly, that organization knows what it's doing, and it's built up a following. And of course, it's amassed an enormous number of wins, and meaningful wins at that. So there's no doubt that it's a legitimate part of the Metroplex's sports scene. And yeah, I need to come join you real soon.
Bob, thank you so much for doing this afternoon. I hope you're enjoying your new role. It's a little different, right? I mean,
Oh, it's all different, but hey, it fits right in with this weird spring of 2020. We're all getting acclimated.
ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, the great Bob Sturm, the Sturminator from Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. Bob, thanks for doing this afternoon. And to you and your family, be safe.
You got it, Tommy. Shout out to Frito.